All right, shalom, shalom. This is your brother Issachar coming back at you. One another lesson. First and foremost, I'd like to give all praises, all honor and glory to Yahweh, Bahashum, Yahweh Shai, Bahashum, Wakak Wadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders, a great millstone. Peace and blessings to the hopeful elect and the 144,000 scattered across the four corners of the earth. Shalom to you. All right, today's lesson, we're going to go into, the plagues, pestilence, and, just kind of cover all the impending dangers that are coming down the pike. So we're going to start off in 2nd Esdras, chapter 16, verse 1 on down. And, we'll read down this chapter, and, we may, probably, after a few verses, kind of, skip around in this chapter, because there's a lot being said in 2nd Esdras chapter 16, 15 as well. But to cover both chapters will take a long time. There's a lot of meat. There's a lot being said. 2nd Esdras 15 and chapter 16. That goes into the martial law, the plagues. It's on point as far as what we're going to be entering right now, which is prophecy. That's what we're about to be entering. As far as the FRNs collapsing, the Federal Reserve note, martial law, economic collapse, civil war, a time like no other, a time of betrayals, a time of hatred, a time of war. You can clearly see World War III is brewing up. A lack of bread. Okay, these elites rolling with their sleeper cells, their UN troops, all that's in there. It's that's just the FYI, because those of you that care about, want to know what's going on. 2nd Esdras 15 and 16, says a lot there. So 2nd Esdras chapter 16 verse 1 on down. Woe be unto thee, Babylon and Asia, that's America, and woe be unto thee, Egypt and Assyria, because Babylon means Babal, confusion. Okay, verse 2. In Egypt, it means bondage, captivity, because right here in America, all 12 tribes are here in captivity. But you heathens and Edomites, you're in captivity too, underneath the elites. It's just that you don't realize it. That's how much these elites have the people lost in the sauce. They're totally confused because you got Edomites and heathens that are proud out here, because they'll look at like the people that are like, don't have as much money and be like, oh yeah, they're poor and this and that, not even knowing that you're a slave too. Yeah, you may have a little bit more money, but you're a slave too, because at the end of the day, you Edomites and heathens, you guys have a birth certificate and a social security card. Some people may have a little bit more money than others. May have a better condo, a better house, a better car, but at the end of the day, you're a slave too. So remember, our enemies are retards. Especially if they're proud, like the 2/3 of our people. Selling out to Satan, like P Diddy and all them. Now look at them through. Just for some what? For some wicked fame. You know what I'm saying? Let me before I continue, let me go into my photos real fast, because I'm not sure if I covered it, but the Spirit's kind of telling me to go over it one more time. So I'm going to go through my photos, and I wanted to go through something real fast. Bear with me. Here we go, right here. Man. Right here. So right here is an Ethiopian business review. Just wanted to cover this. I'm not too sure if I covered it already, but I just wanted to go into it real fast and show you. Right here it says Tanzania bans use of foreign currency. So Tanzania bans use of US dollars and foreign currencies for local transactions. See that? The Bank of Tanzania has introduced new regulations that prohibit the use of foreign currencies, including the US dollar. So those of you that don't know, the U.S. dollar is the world reserve currency, because if China's currency goes down, yeah, it's a little problem, but it's not going to affect the whole world. Okay, if Canada's currency goes down, okay, I mean, yeah, it'll be a little problem, a little hiccup, but it's not going to affect the whole world. This is why all eyes are on America, because whatever America does, it impacts the rest of the world. And remember, the U.S. dollar is the world reserve currency. See that? So if the U.S. dollar goes down, it's a big problem. Okay, it's not like these other nations, All right, because these other foreign currencies, if they go down, like, yeah, okay, you hear about it, but it's not going to affect the whole world. This is why Babylon, America, is spoken about so much in prophecy. This is why the prophets are constantly talking about America, because America is a very big deal. It's a very big deal in prophecy. It's not just we're just picking on America and just, oh, America's evil and just, oh, no, America is a major part, because America is the main stage that the elites push, their witchcraft, their NFL, their sorcery. And remember, the NFL and sports, there's nothing wrong with that. It's a healthy activity, keeps you busy in a positive way. But if you put all your energy into that, you're going to be distracted from what's really going on. But of course, you want to take your family to a game, or, watch basketball or football. There's nothing wrong with that, or have your family or children participate in sports, or even if you are, like in an adult league in softball, that's cool, because it's positive. It's a healthy activity. But it's just that, these elites have the people distracted, because how there's like diehard fans, and that's all they care about, sports, that's all people talk about. Then that becomes a bit of an issue, because that's all is sports, and all you're doing is betting on games, and so your focus is taken away from reality, and so that's why the elites have the majority of the people's minds, because they're distracted with women's sports, chasing the bag, trying to get that mansion, trying to get that $1 million on the hill, so they're distracted from what's really coming down the pike. All right, and remember that there's nothing wrong with money. This is just a little FYI, not going to go into it too much, but just to ensure people, like, okay, that way people will say, well, shit, I have money, does that mean I'm not going to make it? No, not at all. Just because, like, let's say even if you're a millionaire out there, okay, there's no problem with that, there's no issue with that. It's just the Lord says through scriptures, the money is the root of all evil, the love of money, because if that's all people think about is just money, money, money. You see, like, these rappers, all they have is, like, they show money, like, on the floor, like, yeah, I'm just throwing money in the air. That's all they care about, money. And then that becomes vanity, because they worship money, they're all about money, so they're not, giving praises to the Lord. They're, look at the way they act, like, the 2/3 of our people are out there, acting like straight up barbarians, the 2/3 are out here straight up tripping, straight tripping. The Lord has them out here looking crazy, man, huh? It's insane, So, but there's nothing wrong with that, like, let's say, yeah, I mean, you work hard, you own your business or whatever, you're successful, you have $1 million. That don't mean that you're evil at all, okay? Because there's good people out there that do good things with money, you know what I'm saying? It's just that when all you do is worship your foundation, that's why it's the root of evil, because the root means your foundation. That's why you gotta know the meaning of words, because that means that that's all you care about is just money, 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 you see? But if you have money and you're helping out and you're doing good things with it, there's nothing bad, there's nothing wrong with that, okay? Let's see. All right, so yeah, once again, for those of you out there that do have a little bit more money, it's not an evil thing. It's just that the root of evil, if you make it your foundation, if that's all you care about, because then you kind of lose track, you don't really focus on the Lord no more. you kind of focus, you kind of lose track of reality, you know, because that's all you care about. You see? It says the Bank of Tanzania has introduced new regulations that prohibit the use of foreign currencies, including the U.S. dollar, for all domestic transactions and payments. And there's a lot more that goes down, but that right there is just to show you, um, the because the Saudis already dropped the American dollar. I believe Russia did. If they didn't already, they're about to. Tanzania. So there's a, just to show you that this currency is out of here. That the U.S. dollar is about to collapse very soon. All right. Right here, Second Esdras chapter 16, verse 2. Gird up yourselves with cloth and sack and hair, and beware your children, and be sorry, for your destruction is at hand. Right. So for the righteous, yeah, salvation is at hand, but for the wicked, your destruction, meaning judgments. And oh, hey, you know how that movie is gonna come out real soon? That Final Destination, what's it called? Bloodline. Final Destination. Okay, that's how it's gonna be out here, because remember, the angels already have everybody's ticket. All right, so the angels and the Lord have been watching everybody this whole time. You know, so yeah. So remember, these elites gonna have the green light to start, starving people out, putting people inside guillotines and concentration camps. But remember, so are the angels. The angels are gonna be taking people out too. So you're just talking about there's about to be a lot of bloodshed out here. People are gonna be dropping like dominoes out here. For reals, you gotta understand that we're entering a time where actual bodies are gonna start hitting the floor, at a massive rate. What was I gonna say right now? Let's see. Man, I'll think about it. Let me see. What was I gonna say? It's all right. Second Esdras chapter 16, verse 3. We'll continue on down. A sword is sent upon you, right? And who may turn it back? A sword. So a sword is it's a it's a killing instrument. All right, we gotta go straight raw with it, because a sword. What does someone do with a sword? That what does somebody do with the sword? I don't really gotta break that down. You know what I'm saying? So a sword being a sword, a machete, a gun, a drone, whatever. So the Lord is bringing that sword upon you, wicked doers, and who may turn it back? A fire is sent among you, and who may quench it? Right. So yeah, fire, hard times, the elect, the righteous who believe in the Lord, you're gonna go through a test. Remember, just because you believe in the Lord doesn't mean it's gonna be all good. Nah. You gotta especially if you serve the Lord, you gotta prepare you gotta prepare to go through hell. You gotta be prepared to go through it. But the elect, they are created for it, so they can endure it. Second Esdras chapter 16 in verse here we go. In verse 5. Plagues are sent unto you, and what is he that may drive them away? Right, so that is exactly what's coming down the pipe. Plagues. Remember how back in ancient Egypt, Moses turned the water into blood, all right, through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashim Yahushai. So that's also what's going to happen out here. Plagues. This is why too you're seeing a lot of out there in the oceans, on the beaches, you have a lot of fishes and whales, beaching themselves. So that's, you're going to see a lot of things like that, birds dropping from the sky, animals just dying out of nowhere, animals attacking people. There's a lot, there's a lot that's going to happen out here. It's not just war and prepare yourselves. No, remember the Lord stepping in with the angels. It's about to get very wild out here, and then some. It's beyond your comprehension. Verse Second Esdras chapter 16 verse 6. May a man drive away a hungry lion in the wood? Perfect. Okay. Oh, exactly. So all right, because who can drive away a hungry lion? Because that lion, when it's hungry, like when a lion wants to attack a zebra or whatever, it's gonna more than 90, because sometimes the zebra gets away, but 90 to 95% of the time that lion gets that zebra, and that's just another and that's just something what the Lord is preparing for his elect, because the 144,000, the house of David, are lions. They're going to be turned into hunters real soon. So can you imagine the Lord's elect are surrounded by Esau and these heathens, because they have because for the 144,000, because these top witches and warlocks, they know who you are on the left hand side, because these demons tell them. All right, so especially if the left hand side, the wicked, Illuminati, whatever you call them, skull and bones, whatever, those that work, the high elites that worship Baphomet and Satan. Okay, if they think that you're one of the 144, yeah, you'll be on 24-hour watch. You'll have teams, top of teams watching you, but that's all right, because can you imagine like this? Imagine out there in the wild, and can you imagine how a lion has to go out there and hunt down a zebra? You know what I'm saying? All right, can you imagine a lion surrounded by zebras? And then the zebras actually going to a lion? The lion's gonna be like, yo, like, oh heck yeah, hey, thank you, Lord. The lion's gonna be like, shoot, the water shy. So that's what these agents and teams are doing to the 144. Okay, these teams are zebras, and they're going and surrounding the lion, the 144. The 144 are not ordinary men. It's what you gotta realize. Imagine that. So instead of the 144, when it comes down to hunting, they're not gonna go and have to chase down our enemies. A little bit, but the thing is that, remember, the Lord has our enemies in a trick bag, because they're watching the men of the Lord 24 hours. They have teams on them, everything, agents. Imagine. All right, remember, and there's good agents out there and there's bad agents. It's just the way it is, But those that are the bad agents that sold out to the elites and all them, all right, they're watching the Lord, and they have the men of the Lord surrounded. But that's all right, because there's zebras that are gonna go to a lion. Can you imagine that? Like, imagine out there in the wilderness, and zebras are actually surrounding a lion, and they're going to the lion. The lion's not gonna have to run miles and miles and try to hunt them down. The lion is just, all it has to do is just grab them when it's time. When the lion wants to eat, it's just gonna have to just grab some of those zebras. That's it. So that's the same thing what the Lord's doing. The Lord is gonna give the 144,000 a feast. It's gonna be like a buffet out here. That's what you gotta understand. Because there's no weapon that the enemy has still to this day. There's no military intelligence that can take out the 144. They don't have a weapon. They don't have an assassin or a hunter out there. See, this is why they're so afraid. Why do you think they have so many teams out there? Okay, that's neither here nor there. That's just for general information. All right, but that's just to let you know how retarded our enemies are, because they're literally going to the lion. They're literally being set up to be slaughtered. Because once that 144 member gets activated, imagine, it's just like that, So can you imagine the wilderness where a lion doesn't have to hunt down a zebra, where it's surrounded by zebras? And then when the elites give the go-ahead, these teams are actually going to go in and try to grab the 144. Imagine that. Can you imagine, a lion out there in the wilderness and zebras approach the lion? What do you think is going to happen? Those zebras are going to get chewed up. You know, same thing with the Wicked when they try to attack the 144, which is going to be soon because the Wicked are running out of time. Can you imagine? You know, so the 144 are about to have a feast out here. Is what you gotta understand. You know. Oh yeah, because the Wicked, they're trapped inside this planet with the 144 and the angels. You know, because the elites may think, you know, like, oh yeah, we have the men of the Lord surrounded. They're not going anywhere. Nah, it's the other way around, Jack. You guys are not going anywhere. Okay, because everybody is stuck on this planet with the 144. They're the greatest hunters on the universe. You know, you kidding me? They have spiritual power, true X-Men, and nobody can leave this planet. You're trapped in. It's like if somebody falls into a lion cage at the zoo. You ain't going nowhere. You know, when that lion's ready, it's gonna devour that person. Same thing with our enemies. You know, when the Lord gives a green light to the angels and the 144,000, they're gonna hunt all the wicked down. Imagine that. So just remember that. You know, remember that our enemies on the left hand side are about to be devoured by the 144. This is why the elites are so scared because they're praying. They have their fingers crossed, like, please don't allow them to be activated. They're gonna be activated, you know, and they're gonna devour the left hand side. We're talking brutally, you know. Second Esdras chapter 16 verse 6. May any man drive away a hungry lion in the wood, or may anyone quench the fire in stubble when it hath begun to burn? May one turn again the arrow that is shot of a strong archer? Yeah, because once that arrow's shot, you can't turn it back. It's going to its mark, to its target. So that's what the Lord's bringing. So these plagues, which is, you know, the FRN's collapsing. You know, we're entering hyperinflation. Okay, because it's gonna get very bad out here, where all the prices of, you know, food, water is gonna be major. Oh, hey, remember that movie Book of Eli? When he goes right there to a bar, you know, and then he tells the bartender, hey, can I have some water? And then what did the bartender say? He goes, oh yeah, that's the good stuff, you know, because in the day when everything fails, water is gonna be so precious, you know, it's gonna be more better than gold. Because if, let's say you have gold and silver, but there's no food around, what can you do? What can you buy? You know, if societies collapse, you know, and there's nothing around, you know, what are you gonna buy with gold? You know, yeah, gold is nice and all, but once you don't have a society, you know, it don't matter how much money you have, because you're not gonna be able to pay for nothing. Because when the FRNs collapse, let's say you're a millionaire, it's good for nothing. So it's gonna be used for what? Just to wipe your behind, and that's for reals. You know, gold and silver, yeah, that's all right, you know, to kind of have for a little while. But once society collapses, shit, you can have all kinds of gold. You know, people are not going to want that. People are just going to want things to survive, you know, like jackets, boots, you know, food, maybe some weapons, maybe some medical supplies. It's all, when society collapses, it's going to go back to the basics. People are just going to want food, water, food, and shelter, protection. That's what it's going to come down to. Everything else is not going to matter, you know? Facts. Because let's say you have, you know, gold out here, but there's no stores open and all that. What are you going to buy? You know? You see? You know? So when this time when the society collapses, you know, you're not going to be able, for those of you that have, you know, millions of dollars out there, you're not going to be able to purchase stuff, because these stores are going to be ransacked, burned down, you know. You see? So that's the time that we're approaching with these tariffs, you know, and these trade wars, you know, because like China, things are getting so bad and they're costing so much, because both countries, the US and China, they're charging so much, you know. It's like anything else, you know. So in business, you know, it's gonna get a little crazy, and so people are gonna make the adjustments to try to survive, right? But once, and excuse my Italian, but you know, we're gonna have to go raw with it today. But once something gets so stupid where it's not even worth it, where it's gonna cost you thousands of dollars, where you're not even making no money, people are just gonna close their doors and say, "Fuck it, I'm not gonna ship it because it's gonna cost. We're gonna lose money." You know, see, because in the beginning, people are gonna try to make their adjustments because everyone, once you start hitting hardships, people are not just gonna quit right away and just cancel it. People are gonna try to make the adjustments. Sit down, count the costs, and say, okay, can we still continue to run this business? Or if not, let's just close the doors, sell what we got and move on, or whatever, or break even. Fuck it. So that's what's happening with these tariffs, okay, and with these storage containers, because it's costing China so much that they're not even bringing it no more. Because if it costs so much where they're not even making money, where it's just stupid, it's not even making sense. Why would they go through all that? Why would they go through all that hassle just to lose thousands and millions of dollars? They're just gonna say, well, fuck it, we're not gonna ship it. Let's just stay right here, keep it simple, and sell what we got. Forget America. Yeah, we can make money off America, but if they want to charge, over 100 and something percent, they're not even gonna bring the items. See that? So, by that, and there's a lot of that happening right now. You have truckers giving up right here in America because there's no shipments coming in. Why? Because those trade wars, those tariffs. See that? So when things get so stupid, what business owner is gonna keep doing it even though they're losing thousands of dollars when it's getting stupid? Okay, yeah, they may try it in the beginning, like, okay, let me see if I can do it. But if not, once it gets stupid and silly, okay, they're not gonna want to do that no more, because right here. Okay, because when it don't make that much sense. I mean, once it's things are just kind of bananas and you're just not even making money. Who would still keep bringing their stuff over here just to lose millions and thousands of dollars? Okay, so that's why China is stopping. Like, no, we're not even gonna ship it because it's stupid. It doesn't even make sense. So whatever America has right now, the shipments are not coming in. So right now, we're already getting a lack of supplies. So that means whatever America has on reserve, they're going into their reserves, because there's nothing coming in. Okay, it's like, okay, it's like at your house, like let's say at your house, okay, like let's say you can't grow groceries. The grocery stores are not open. All right, now you got to go to whatever's in your house. You got to eat and drink that. So your supplies are going to start running out. Because if you can't keep going to the grocery store every week or every other week, okay, and your average person out there goes groceries every week. See? So imagine if you can't do that, what's going to happen? You're going to start running out of supplies. So that's what's happening to America. So now that there's nothing coming in, now you just got to start using, they got to just start using whatever they have in America. Okay? And that's going to run out soon. See, because there's nothing coming in. See that? So little by little, the supplies are running out, and this is why all the prices of stuff are gonna skyrocket. It's gonna be bananas out here. Okay, that is hyperinflation. Okay, we're literally Akim and Aquath. That's brothers and sisters. Akim is brothers, Aquath is sisters. Okay, so Akim is brothers. Aquath is sisters. All right, so out there, it's gonna. So the prices. So literally, the prices of food, like just for a meal, is gonna be like $120, just for like a sandwich and chips. It's gonna get that pricey out here, like for real, where like people's like their daily wages is just gonna be for just for like a meal. It's gonna get that crazy before the FRNs collapse. Because the FRNs are gonna collapse, but there's still a little time, not a whole lot, but there's certain events that have to happen first before the collapse. But it's gonna happen. So this is why we teach you guys out there, what to see, what you're gonna begin to see before it's all said and done. Not just okay, it's gonna crash. No, we're gonna show you in the scriptures, break it down to you. That way you can see, okay, all right, this is going to happen. Hey, the Lord said, all right, this is, you're going to start to see this first before it's all said and done. So remember, we're already in inflation right now, but this society is going to go into hyperinflation. That just means basically, and now don't let that, I know it's kind of a big word, but that just means that the cost of everything is going to skyrocket. That's all it means, that the prices are going to go bananas out here before the dollar actually collapses, because it is. Remember, we're not going to go into a little recession and, a little hiccup, a little fender bender, but, we'll be all right. No, okay? Remember, this bad boy's about to crash. Like all the way. Totally total. Not no fender bender. You're talking total, out of there. Through, mijo. Okay? Through, mijo. This is what you gotta understand. Alright? Completely through out here. You see? Alright? So, verse 7. May one turn again the arrow that is shot of a strong archer? Yeah, because once that arrow is shot, you can't return it. Verse 8. The mighty the mighty Lord Yahweh Bashim Yahushai sent the plagues. But right there, bam. Booyah. So, key point. Okay? The mighty Lord. So the Lord's mighty. The Lord's not no square. The Lord's not no punk. So right here, the mighty Lord Yahweh Bashim Yahushai sendeth the plagues. Meaning the Lord's in control of everything. He's the one giving the elites and the left-hand side the go-ahead. Why you think they have all these sleeper cells and UN troops stationed here in America? It's part of judgment. This is why the Lord is allowing, Klaus Schwab and Bill Gates just to say, oh yeah, they're about to take out billions of people. And how come people are not arresting them or taking them out? Because it's the Lord's will on the left-hand side. See? See that? So this is why you gotta ask yourself, like, damn, well, how can these people just do that? Because it's prophecy. The Lord is dealing with these elites, but on the left-hand side. Okay, it's a necessary evil. It's part of judgment. Remember, the Lord's gonna use the wicked to judge the wicked. All right, yeah. So that's why they can go on national television and say that they're about to take out 6 billion people and like nothing, Yeah. See, the mighty Lord sendeth the plagues, and who is he that can drive them away? Right, because who can stop it? Nobody, because it's the Lord's will. Because the Bible reigns supreme. It's like, okay, here's another example. Another parable. Remember, like Yahweh Shai said, here's another parable. All right, it's like okay, let's say at your work, right? Let's say you have the assistant manager, and then you have like your main manager, right? Okay, so like this. So let's say at work, you're doing something at work and your co-workers complain about you, and the assistant manager's like, I'm gonna get that person fired, but the main manager's like, no, like, that's my person right there. That's my I like that person right there. All right, the employees and assistant manager, they may not like that employee, but if the main manager says no, he or she stays, that's it. Why? Because it's up to the big boss. Whatever his or her word is, that's it. Same thing with the Lord, because it's the Lord's word. Remember, he's the big boss. Okay? He's the metal. He's the boss, the most high. So whatever he says goes. So it doesn't matter. Remember, so that's why people can't change anything, because the Lord said, no, this is going to happen. See? So it's just like that, where people, like at your workplace, they want to, like, let's say, remember, they wanted to, get people fired, and the assistant manager's like, yeah, let's do it, But if the main manager says no, he or she stays, that's it. Because that was the word that went out from the main manager. Same thing with the Lord, because the Lord said, this is what's going to happen. This is why no one can change it. See? This is why the elites, the left-hand side, this is why they're retarded, because they think that they can change prophecy. They can change with the Lord's word, They think they can stop it. And they're going to try to fight against the Lord and the angels, which is crazy, But it's all right, this is something that, Lord willing, because I want to see it, I want to see what happens to these dudes. These dudes are crazy, you know? Yeah, yeah. Hey, because if you don't know, this is a quick FYI. Because the elites, not only are they not only are they not only are they wicked, but they're actually telling the Lord, like, come on, like, bring it on, let's go. Imagine how crazy. So this is why, like, you gotta sit back and watch the show. Can you imagine? Like, imagine when someone's being a demon, the Lord's already gonna take that person out, you know. So imagine somebody being a demon and telling the Lord, bring it on. Imagine these dudes. Hey, they're Obadiah. Okay, their pride has deceived them. They they're so full of pride that they're actually challenging the Lord. They actually are getting ready to fight the Lord and the angels. Can you imagine? Huh? Man. Yeah. So this is why the Lord tells us in Psalms 91, only with thy eyes shall thy see the reward of the wicked. So just get ready to watch the show, ladies and gentlemen. You know, get ready to watch the left hand side get beat down. Yes, they have a small time, you know, to bring, remember, martial law and all that. That's a window appointed to them, you know, martial law, you know, the concentration camps, stuff like that. But remember, um, remember that that's they're out of there. You know, they only have a small time left because the battles of the Lord's and the Bible reigns supreme. The prophecies are undefeated, baby. You know. Okay. Second Esdras chapter 16 verse 9. A fire shall go forth from his wrath, and who is he that may quench it? Right. So fires, you know, troubles are happening. Okay. Verse 10. He shall cast lightnings, and who shall not fear? He shall thunder, and who shall not be afraid? Right. So, okay. Another example, you know, when you have big old hurricanes and tornadoes and all that, it gets scary, right? You're like, oh, snap. You know, when you have winds, gusts of winds, you know, like over, you know, 100 miles an hour, you know, you see cars and big rigs getting flipped over. You're like, oh, damn. So imagine when the Lord gets here, you know. Verse 11, the Lord shall threaten. See, so the Lord, you know, is yeah, because that's what the word is, you know. This is why the prophets are enemy number one to the elites in their new world order, because it's you know, they're actually threatening them, you know. Because can you imagine? Because with those words, they're saying that they're about to get beat down and go into slavery. You imagine that? So that's why, you know, these elites are offended, you know, because they're like, shit, you know what I mean? Because you imagine the prophets are not just out there talking about history. The prophets are actually telling these elites that they're going to slavery and they're about to be lasered from the that they're about to be vaporized. You imagine that? And they're about to go into slavery. See? So the Lord's threatening. Yeah, the Lord's telling them. Yeah, you know, through His prophets. See? The Lord shall threaten, and who shall not be utterly beaten to powder at His presence? All right, let's read that again. So, right here, the Lord shall threaten, and who shall not be utterly beaten to powder at His presence? So, what does that mean? Beaten to powder. What does that mean? Huh? That means that when Yahushua gets here with the angels, that the Lord's gonna shoot laser beams at the wicked, and they're gonna be turned to powder. They're gonna be vaporized. So right here is that scripture, Second Esdras chapter 16 and the 11th verse. Okay, I'll read it one more time. The Lord shall threaten, and who shall not be utterly beaten to powder at His presence? Right. See that? So, because He's gonna beat the people, the wicked, of course, to powder. From the lasers from the ships. Once again, you know, I use this example a lot, but it's good, you know, because it's perfect. It was like a that movie is a perfect. It's like it's a good example. So that movie War of the Worlds with Tom Cruise. Okay. All right. Remember when those machines came out of the ground and they started lasering people? Remember that? They started turning them to powder. Okay, that's exactly what's gonna happen to. That's exactly what's gonna happen to the wicked. I remember how Tom Cruise was running and people were running from those ships and they were turning people into powder. Same thing, just like that, just like that. So that's just a good example. So you can see out there, how the Lord is gonna, what the Lord is about to do out here. So with that, that's it on today's lesson on the plagues and pestilence that are coming down the pike. Martial law. That's when the military gets involved. That's military like law. Remember, once they declare martial law, there's no more rights. Soldiers can go into your house without questioning. They don't need to show you a warrant, anything. They can just bust down your door. Remember, there's no more rules. There's no more laws. That's it. When they declare martial law, everything in that Constitution is out the window, baby. Remember that. It's gonna be survival to the finish, last man standing, only the strong survive, and that's for real. So with that, that's it on plagues and pestilence. Prepare yourselves, because remember the first pandemic that happened, how it shut down the whole world. There's gonna be another one coming down. There's more that are coming down the pipe. Remember, Bill Gates told you himself out of his own mouth that if the first one didn't get your attention, the second one will. So remember, there's going to be a lot more that are coming, a lot more that are stronger. They're going to have people out here, dropping by the masses, but there's also wars coming. There's betrayals coming, persecutions. People are going to be going to prisons, black sites, concentration camps. It's just what's going to happen, Yeah. This is why you got to prepare yourselves now. That way, when it happens, in your mind, well, the Lord said it was going to happen. I just got to endure it and make the best of it. That's it. At the end of the day, trust in the Lord and stay in the Spirit. Okay? Because our enemies, they don't understand the Spirit. Okay? They scratch their head and they're like, damn, what's up? How come this person don't get carnal? Because it's a spirit. Because our enemies, they only know carnality. They don't know the spiritual side. So if you stay in the Spirit, you stay closer to the Lord. All right, so with that, stay prayed up and, stay patient and stay in the Spirit. Let the Lord handle the rest. On your feet, soldier. Shalom.